The shocking day when God defeated an entire army alone. Few knew what truly happened that night, a night shrouded in whispers, drenched in the eerie light of the moon. The sky crackled with tension, as if it knew something monumental was at hand. In the barren land of Gibeon, an army surged forward, thousands of valiant men, their armor glinting like sinister stars in the dark. They marched with purpose, but little did they know, they were mere pawns in a grand design. At the heart of this ominous gathering stood Joshua, a leader bearing the weight of countless lives. His eyes scanned the horizon. The atmosphere was thick with dread. Can you feel it? A tightness in the chest, a lump in the throat, as fear wrapped its icy fingers around the brave and the cowardly alike. The sun dipped lower, casting shadows that danced as if mocking the march of doom. In that moment, a fervent plea escaped his lips, "Son, stand still over Gibeon." A command? A desperate cry? It echoed through the valleys, quaking the very earth beneath them. Imagine it. Time itself paused. The sun hung still, defying all that was natural. Gasps of disbelief rippled through the ranks. Was this real? Could the Almighty be intervening? The soldiers froze, uncertainty swelling like a storm cloud above them. What followed was a cascade of chaos. Hailstones plummeted from the heavens, crushing those who sought dominance. An entire army, roaring like a lion, suddenly silenced under the relentless rain of wrath. Was it a divine shield or a harbinger of doom? Eyes wide, hearts pounding, the men faltered. Their courage turned to panic, confusion spreading like wildfire. This was a scene crafted by the Creator himself, a dramatic spectacle of power and might, and still, in that maelstrom of fear and fury, one thought lingered in the air: how could one man stand against a force so great? The crowd murmured, whispers of doubt mingling with desperate prayers. This wasn't a battle of flesh and blood alone, this was a confrontation with the divine. Could Joshua, a mere mortal, truly hold the hand of God? As the dust settled, and the sun finally resumed its course, the aftermath was a sight to behold. Bodies lay scattered, lost in a darkened haze of confusion. The cries of the defeated echoed against the stillness, a haunting reminder of their miscalculation. What now for Gibeon? What for Joshua, carrying not just responsibility but the weight of an unfathomable miracle? What lay in wait for the people now that they had witnessed such wonders? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the days that followed the extraordinary events at Gibeon, the echoes of the battle lingered in the hearts of the people. Joshua, the leader imbued with both triumph and trepidation, surveyed the remnants of what had once been an encroaching army. The skies cleared, revealing stars that shone with an unfamiliar brilliance, as if they too were witnesses to the unimaginable spectacle that had unfolded. The sun that had once stood still now illuminated a land both scarred and sanctified. The aftermath of divine intervention left a heavy silence where the cries of battle had once filled the air. The people of Israel, coupled with the neighboring tribes who had watched from afar, gathered to discuss what could only be understood as a pivotal moment ordained by the Almighty. Joshua called the elders together under the watchful gaze of the moonlit sky. He felt the weight of prophecy anchoring him as he spoke, each word woven with reverence. What we have seen here is not merely a victory in battle but a testament to faith, he proclaimed, his voice steady. For we did not triumph through our might, but through the hand of God that stood firm alongside us. As the murmurs of agreement rose, a young woman named Miriam stepped forward, her spirit burning bright with curiosity. But why did such power need to be displayed, Joshua? Many will believe out of fear, yet others might question why this demonstration of might was necessary. Her question hung in the air, profound and full of weight. Joshua paused, turning to the gathering, sensing the tension that accompanied her words. "Perhaps it is not merely about fear," he replied thoughtfully, "but rather a call to recognize the sovereignty of our Creator. The battles we fight are not always seen in the physical realm, often they exist in the hearts of our people. By witnessing this, we are reminded of His promise that we are not alone in our struggles." As day turned to night, the community shared stories of their own personal battles, moments where faith had either faltered or soared. It was then that an elderly man named Eli, who had long been a silent observer, spoke up. "I remember the days when fear ruled our hearts. We were enslaved to doubt, but now, after such a revelation, what do we do with this knowledge?" His voice trembled, filled with decades of unvoiced wisdom. The people listened intently, awaiting Joshua's guidance. "He has shown us that we are called to be witnesses in our everyday lives, to share what has transpired," he said. "We must share the story of Gibeon, not just as a recount of a miraculous event but as a reminder to trust in the unseen, to rely on the strength of faith amidst adversity," but uncertainty still loomed. In the corner of the gathering, a group of warriors exchanged glances, their hearts still muddied by the panic they had felt when the hail fell from the sky. One among them, a man named Asher, finally spoke, "And what of those who witnessed our defeat? Have they not reason to seek revenge? Will they not question our God now that they know His power?" The tension returned, and uneasiness swept through the crowd. Joshua sensed the brewing storm. It could not be ignored. He raised his hands, calling for stillness. "Let us not dwell solely on the fear of retaliation. Instead, let us remember that our God fights for us, both in truth and spirit. They have seen His might, and it may invoke reverence rather than wrath." Yet, deep within him, Joshua wrestled with a solitary question that continued to swirl in his mind: what if the true test of faith lies not in moments of victory, but in our response to what comes next? As the night deepened, shadows danced around them, the air charged with anticipation and apprehension. It was not mere defeat or victory they faced, but a path still unfolding, a grand narrative waiting to reveal itself. What awaited them on this journey of faith? The dawn that promised hope, or a storm yet to come? As the dawn broke, spilling light over the land still heavy with the remnants of battle, Joshua gathered his people for a new beginning. The horizon, painted in hues of orange and gold, seemed to mirror the hope and trepidation in their hearts. They had witnessed the miraculous, but fear lingered, weaving through their thoughts like a vine threatening to choke the emerging blossoms of faith. Once again, Miriam stepped forth, her spirit unbroken. "Joshua, what should be our focus now? We have seen His power, but how do we ensure our hearts remain steadfast? Will we falter as we go forth into the unknown?" Joshua nodded, recognizing the sincerity in her inquiry. The ground beneath them had shifted dramatically, their reality was altered by the divine intervention they had experienced. "Like the morning mist that lifts to reveal the land, our understanding must also clear," he spoke gently. "We will establish a covenant, reminding us of what we have witnessed. We must engrave this truth upon our hearts and our actions." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, yet an undercurrent of fear still thrummed beneath their resolve. Joshua's gaze turned towards the mountains, where the memories of the vanquished hung like a thick cloak, heavy on the land. "We shall gather stones from the river to build a monument, a testament to God's might. Each stone will represent our individual struggles, trials, and the divine help we received." The people nodded, but Eli raised his hand once more. "And when we build this monument, how will we explain the message of our God? How will we teach those who have not witnessed such wonders?" Joshua took a deep breath, savoring the morning air that tasted of fresh beginnings. "We shall tell our children, and their children after them. The stories of Gibeon must be shared, not merely as history but as lessons of faith. Our God desires relational truth, our lives will be testimonies of His presence. But we must also be prepared that others may not believe, even miracles can be questioned." As he spoke, the rippling waters of the river nearby caught his attention, drawing his thoughts to the ever-flowing current of life. The grace of God, much like the moving waters, can be felt but not always seen, its depths often hidden from sight. We must learn to recognize Him daily, in our joys and in our trials. Our journey will continually reveal more of his character. As they began to gather stones, a low whisper of discontent spread through the crowd. What if our enemies do not forget us? What if their hearts burn with vengeance and they come for us? Asher's voice, once again, cut through the air like a blade. The honesty of his fears resonated with many. Joshua felt the weight of their dread, and for a fleeting moment, doubt crept into his heart. The path set before us may hold trials yet unknown, he confessed, and though we saw the hand of God at Gibeon, our journey is not over. We must trust him further still, understanding that faith sometimes leads us into valleys of uncertainty. Miriam stepped forward, placing a hand on Joshua's arm. But what is the purpose of trials, Joshua? Are they sent to strengthen us or to call us home? With a pensive expression, Joshua turned to the crowd, searching their faces as morning light pierced through the branches of the trees above. The journey of faith is laced with mystery, he replied. Each challenge may serve to refine us, to draw us closer to our Creator. Perhaps they are not just obstacles but invitations, opportunities to see His providence in ways we have yet to fathom. As they continued their task, the stones began to resemble a structure, a foundation forged by faith and remembrance. And yet, the question lingered like an unresolved prayer: what if these trials born of the unknown were not signs of abandonment but rather beckonings to a deeper communion with the divine? What revelations awaited them in the shadows as they pressed onward toward their destiny? As the sun climbed higher, casting its golden warmth over the land, the people of Israel worked diligently under Joshua's guidance. The stones they gathered began to form a monument, a visible reminder of the divine aid they had received in their hour of need. Yet, as the structure rose, so too did lingering doubts and fears that the enemies they had vanquished would rise again, and the uncertainty of their future weighed heavily upon their minds. Amidst their labor, a sudden hush fell over the crowd. A figure approached from the valley, cloaked and weary. He bore the look of a wanderer, yet there was something familiar in his eyes. As he drew closer, a murmur of recognition swept through the people. It was Caleb, a trusted companion of Joshua from their days of scouting the land. They welcomed him with whispers and cautious joy, for his absence had been deeply felt. Caleb. Joshua called out, his voice resonating with relief. What news do you bring from the mountains? Caleb's eyes glimmered with the light of purpose as he stepped forward, unfastening the clasp of his cloak to reveal scrolls tucked beneath. I have journeyed far and gathered stories, wisdom, and signs from the land, he said, his tone urgent. Echoes of our divine encounter with God ripple through the territories we now inhabit. But not all have witnessed such glory and conviction, many harbor shadows in their hearts. Caleb paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle among the people. As I walked, I spoke with those who heard of the victory at Gibeon. There are those who question the very hand that guided us. They ponder the depths of our faith and whether our triumphs will endure. Joshua listened, allowing Caleb's words to deepen the contemplative silence hanging in the air. What did you learn of our enemies? Are they indeed planning to retaliate? There is talk of a great gathering, Caleb replied, his brow furrowing. Kings from the regions touched by our victory speak of unity against the Israelites. They do not forget the power displayed at Gibeon, nor do they trust in the might of your God. Instead, they seek alliances, weaving plots as intricate as a spider's web. A murmur of discontent rippled through the crowd as they absorbed Caleb's revelation. The monument stood incomplete yet began to symbolize not just their triumph, but the very fears that now clawed at their hearts. Joshua could feel the tension mounting, and he knew he needed to rally his people once more. Fear not, for what is set against us can be used to reveal more of God's glory, he called out with renewed determination. Our enemies unite in their disbelief, but we carry a truth far greater than their schemes. Our God does not slumber, nor does he abandon us when shadows lengthen. Caleb nodded, pulling out a scroll that had been inscribed with the prophecies he had encountered. Here, brothers and sisters, are the words of men and women who walked before us. They tell of a time when God moved mountains and toppled fortresses with a whisper. When we face our foes with the strength given by him, we will see that even the fiercest opposing might is nothing against the will of the Almighty. With each word, Joshua could feel the embers of faith reigniting in the hearts of the people. Yet a gnawing thought settled within him, for as he gazed at Caleb's earnest face, he recognized the truth that while they carried the promise of victory, the path was still fraught with uncertainty. As they resumed their work on the monument, still encased in a flurry of emotions, Joshua pondered anew, how often do we fail to see God's hand in our struggles, mistaking them for the absence of His presence? Could it be that the call to faith is often wrapped in the very fears we wish to avoid? What deeper understanding awaited them on this perilous journey still ahead? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting elongated shadows over the towering monument that began to take shape. It embodied both victory and vulnerability. As the people toiled, their hands stained with dust and sweat, a low murmuring filled the air. It wove through the crowd, becoming a tapestry of hope and anxiety, echoing the past and apprehension for the future. Joshua gathered the elders, seeking counsel in light of Caleb's revelations. They congregated beneath an ancient oak, its branches bending like the weight of history itself. "What must we do, knowing our foes conspire against us?" he asked, his voice steady yet contemplative. One elder, Eliab, with a beard as white as the clouds above, spoke gently yet firmly. "We must turn our eyes anew to the one who led us out of Egypt. We must humble ourselves, acknowledge our need for His guidance, and prepare for what lies ahead." Another elder chimed in, a younger man named Gideon, who had experienced fear and doubt before the victory of Gibeon. "But what if our prayers remain unanswered? What if our faith falters? Are we ready to face potential defeat?" The conversation ebbed and flowed like a river, reflecting their inner turmoil. Questions arose but answers felt elusive. Throughout, Caleb stood beside Joshua, sharing in the unease but unwavering in his resolve. At dusk, as twilight cloaked the land, Joshua gathered the people once more, their faces a mosaic of determination and dread. "Let us consider the call to seek God's direction through fasting and prayer," he proclaimed, inviting hearts weary from uncertainty to focus their spirits on the divine. "We must ascend the mountain and petition our Lord, for it is in the valley of our trials that His power can shine through our weakness." Hesitant murmurs rippled through the assembly, for sacrificing their daily labors was a heavy price, yet the memory of victories past encouraged a few to agree. With Caleb's approving nod, Joshua felt the strength of unity wash over them, a shared commitment to believe in what they could not yet see. As night descended, Joshua led the congregation toward the foothills. They climbed cautiously, the stars flickering overhead as a distant reminder of the divine. Upon arrival at a clearing, a somber peace enveloped them, the quiet broken only by the rustling leaves and the sounds of whispered prayers. Joshua raised his arms to the heavens, his voice rising against the ethereal backdrop. "O Lord, hear our cry. Reveal your will to us amidst our fears. Let us know if the path ahead is fraught with danger or suffused with your grace." The others followed suit, hearts laid bare before God. Yet, despite the fervency of their pleas, a thick stillness enveloped the moment, heightened by their expectations and doubts. Hours passed, and the chant of prayers melded into an almost hypnotic rhythm, yet no answers revealed themselves. Just as fatigue began to wear on them, a brilliant light pierced through the canopy, illuminating the clearing with a glow that beckoned their gazes upward. The people gasped, clutching one another, their fears momentarily eclipsed by the awe of the sight. They stared as the shimmering light coalesced into the figure of a man, radiant and cloaked in majesty. "I am the commander of the Lord's army," the figure proclaimed, his voice reverberating through their hearts. "I come to remind you that the battle belongs to the Lord. Stand firm, and fear not, for your foes will be scattered like dust before the wind." An electric hush fell over the assembly as they processed this divine assurance. It resonated deeply within them, yet uncertainty lingered, questions leaped forward. How would this promise manifest? What actions were required of them now? As the luminosity receded, Joshua remained rooted in a mixture of wonder and unease. "We have witnessed the presence of God," he murmured, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon him. Yet what significance do these moments hold if we fail to pursue our faith with courage? As they descended from the mountain, the vision fresh in their minds, new sense of longing settled within every heart. It was clearer than ever that their journey had just begun, and unanswered questions festered like seeds yearning to grow. Joshua gazed into the distance where the horizon blurred with possibilities, and unsure of the path ahead, he wondered, how do we balance faith against fear, trusting in unseen victories while confronting the tangible threats before us? What might we discover in the waiting? As dawn broke over the horizon, its golden rays spilled into the valley, bathing the land in light and warmth. The people awoke with a newfound sense of purpose, the events of the previous night still emblazoned in their hearts. Though the promise of victory resonated within them, the specter of fear lingered as shadows still danced among their thoughts. Joshua, emerging from a restless sleep, looked upon the faces of his people as they gathered in the early morning light. Their expressions conveyed a blend of hope and apprehension, the morning air thick with unspoken fears. As the sun climbed higher, he felt the weight of leadership more acutely than ever, acutely aware that the path they walked required immense courage. "Gather around," he called, his voice firm yet soothing. The thrumming of hearts quickened as the assembly formed a circle, anticipation mingling with trepidation. "We stand on the edge of uncertainty, yet we are called to act. Let the words of our encounter last night guide us. We have been chosen, and we will not face our foes in our strength, but with the assurance given to us by the commander of the Lord's army." His words ignited a flicker of bravery in some, while others remained bound by invisible chains of doubt. Caleb stepped forward, his voice earnest and unwavering. "Remember, my friends, the times we have witnessed the hand of God at work. We crossed the Red Sea, we fell the walls of Jericho in faith, and today will bear witness to his continued providence. Are we not a people strengthened by his promises?" A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, yet the undercurrent of fear could not be easily dismissed. Joshua sensed the unrest, leading him to ponder the gravity of their situation. How could he transform their anxiety into unwavering faith? They needed to act, but how could they move when trepidation paralyzed their hearts? The assembly decided to send scouts to gather intelligence on the enemy. Joshua chose a handful of men, encouraging them to be both vigilant and discreet. "Return with knowledge about the camp, we must understand the size and strength of the forces before us. This venture is not born of fear, but of wisdom." The men, though their faces showed their hesitation, nodded resolutely, setting off to fulfill their task. As the day wore on, the people busied themselves with preparations. Joshua engaged in earnest prayer, seeking clarity through the silence that surrounded him. The sun reached its zenith, casting a harsh light as his spirit wrestled with uncertainty. Would they find courage before the impending conflict? Which approach would honor God's promise? The scouts returned as dusk fell, their expressions grave. "The army is vast," one of them reported, sweat glistening on his brow. "They are numerous and well-equipped, and their battle cries echo through the valleys. The morale among their ranks seems high, emboldened by the strength of their numbers." At this news, murmurs of dismay swept through the people. The shadows of doubt swelled like dark clouds above them. But Caleb, unwavering in spirit, urged them once more, "Let us not forget who fights for us. Do not dwell on their size, remember the might of our God." As tensions mounted, Joshua called them to gather again. Standing tall, he held his staff aloft. "Fear not, for we have been reminded of the one who goes before us." He felt their eyes upon him, searching for reassurance, for hope. "Our God has shown his faithfulness, now we must walk forward in conviction. We shall take a different approach, a divine strategy." His words paused as curiosity danced within the crowd. "Tomorrow we will face our foes not with swords raised high, but with songs of praise and trumpets blaring." The proclamation fell over them like the first drops of rain on parched ground. Confusion mingled with disbelief, yet hope flickered faintly. How can we expect such unarmed confrontation to yield victory? A voice asked from the back. Joshua took a deep breath, contemplating his response. "It is our faith that will lead us. When we declare our dependence on God in worship, we invite his intervention." The atmosphere crackled with uncertainty, but within the apprehension lay a glimmer of potential transformation. As the assembly dispersed, Joshua stole a glance towards the horizon, where the enemy camp loomed ominously. How could a day filled with songs and praise lead to triumph before an army of such magnitude? Doubts bubbled in the depths of his heart. Would they see God move in the manner they anticipated, or would it be different than they had imagined? With a myriad of thoughts swirling in his mind, he pondered, what might it reveal about our understanding of strength and victory when the battle is fought through faith rather than swords? How can we prepare ourselves for revelations that defy our expectations? As darkness descended upon the encampment, the people of Israel knew rest would not come easily. The tension in the air was palpable, each heart echoing the uncertainty that loomed over them. As the stars scattered across the night sky like scattered jewels, Joshua sat apart from the others, discerning the stillness that enveloped the world around him. In this quietness, he sought guidance, wrestling with the weight of what was to come. What would the morrow hold? The image of their enemies, strong and confident, danced in his mind. Yet alongside that image, a burgeoning comfort birthed amidst the confusion, the remembrance of past encounters with the divine, moments when hope emerged from despair, and deliverance appeared where none was expected. Joshua closed his eyes, whispering prayers that entwined with his fears, illuminating the shadows of doubt within. As the moonlight cast silver beams onto the ground, Joshua felt the gentle embrace of peace. He remembered the stories told by their ancestors, the cries of their forefathers in Egypt, the unfurling of the sea, the patience in the wilderness. Each generation had been marked by moments of divine intervention, each victory a testament to faith unwavering. Suddenly, he grasped that perhaps the battle was not merely against the armed might of their enemies, but against the very fear that threatened to ensnare their spirits. The night deepened, and soon dawn edged just beyond the horizon, an unfurling promise illuminating the world anew. The vibrant hues of morning spilled into the camp, where the people awoke, still clutching the remnants of their doubts. Joshua called them forth, gathering them once more under the wide expanse of the sky. Today, we step into the unknown, he proclaimed, voice rising above the whispers of apprehension. We shall raise our voices in praise, and our instruments will sound, for our faith must take precedence over fear. He could see the conflict in their eyes, the struggle between the call to stand firm and the instinct to flee. This day shall be different. With each note lifted in worship, we shall proclaim the glory of the one who goes before us. As the sun ascended, Joshua instructed the people on the order of their procession. Front and center would be the priests, their trumpets gleaming in the sunlight, flanked by the armed men. Behind them followed the rest of the multitude, accompanied by voices raised in song. The melody wrapped around them like a sacred veil, a poignant reminder of their journey and the hope that resided in their hearts. However guarded it may be, they commenced their march toward their foes, the rhythm of their feet synchronizing with the beating of their hearts. As the encampment of their enemies came into view, the atmosphere surrounding them shifted. Unease rippled through the ranks, yet as the sound of jubilant praise broke forth, it echoed through the valley like a wild wind, rising to the heavens. For the Lord is good, his mercy endures forever. Curious glances exchanged between enemy soldiers filtered through the clamor. Their eyes widened at the sight before them, the children of Israel, not in battle formation but standing united in song, joy radiating from them despite the impending confrontation. In the midst of their chorus, a strange phenomenon began to unfurl. To Joshua's astonishment, he noticed the faces of the enemy contorting into expressions of confusion and alarm. What was this? Their fortitude seemed to waver, anguish flickering behind their battle-hardened gazes. The song swelled, reverberating not only against the crags but deep into the hearts of those who heard. Suddenly, as if commanded by an unseen hand, the once united army began to stir with discord. A cacophony of voices erupted within their ranks, battling with one another as if a great confusion took hold. Joshua watched in disbelief, wondering if this was the divine response to their cries for deliverance. Could it be that their faith and praise could disrupt a force that seemed invincible? The air buzzed with questions that swirled in the minds and hearts of both the Israelites and their foes, the melody of clarity intermingling with the chaos of doubt. As disarray overwhelmed the enemy, Joshua felt a stirring within himself, a sense of divine orchestration that defied all human understanding. Murmurs of victory curled around him like tendrils of fire, yet uncertainty still clung in the corners of his heart. Could this truly be the way God chose to reveal his glory? The day waged on, leaving the outcome shrouded in a fog of mystery. Joshua's heart raced with wonder and anticipation. Who were they in this moment? Warriors? Worshippers? Instruments of divine action? He would soon learn, but for now, he could only ponder, in what ways might our songs drown out the battles that rage within and around us? If God's power could alter the course of armies through praise, what might he accomplish in the quiet of our souls when we lift our voices in faith? As the tumult swelled among the ranks of the enemy, the sun climbed higher, casting its warm light over the valley, where Joshua stood at the forefront of his people. The sounds of disarray from the opposing army grew louder, yet he could still hear the unwavering chorus of worship rising from his own resolve born in faith and unity. With each note that escaped their lips, it felt as though they were building a bridge to the divine, one that could withstand the fiercest of storms. Joshua's gaze drifted beyond his people to the spectacle unfolding. It was as if a force unseen swept through the enemy camp, stirring confusion like leaves in a tempest. He strained to hear the words being exchanged among the men who minutes ago had brandished swords with bravado. Now they were shouting unsure, angry, and lost. The ground seemed to tremble not beneath the weight of soldiers but with the profound impact of divine intervention woven into the fabric of that very moment. The priests, standing before the advancing ranks, blew their trumpets with fervor, each blast punctuating the crescendo of worship like thunder in the sky. Joshua felt a surge of courage course through him, a recognition that perhaps their unity wasn't merely for spectacle but a demonstration of unyielding faith, an act that invited divine presence into their midst. They were not merely witnesses, they were participants in a miracle, but as the chorus continued, Joshua found himself wrestling with a deeper contemplation. The confusion in the enemy camp, the turmoil taking root, forced him to ponder the nature of their battle. Were the spoils of war measured solely by swords and shields, or could they also be counted among the victories that transcended mere physical confrontation? He recalled the stories told by his ancestors of the ways God had fought battles for his people, transforming fear into fortitude and chaos into clarity. Suddenly, a fearful shout emanated from the heart of the enemy's ranks, breaking through the veil of chaos. "Who are you to challenge the might of our army?" A figure emerged, waving his arms wildly, his expression a blend of terror and disbelief. "Can music wield a sword? Can a song shield you from our advance? We are strong. We are invincible." In that moment, Joshua felt the truth of a profound realization wash over him. Here was the essence of their plight: the enemy's greatest weapon was not their numbers but their blind allegiance to fear. In their cries, Joshua sensed a revelation that the songs of his people, suffused with faith, could unmask the illusions devised by their adversaries. The lies that fortified despair were beginning to crumble under the weight of divine truth, yet, even as he stood amidst this unfolding erudition, a whisper of uncertainty lingered in the depths of his mind. If the power of worship could rend the fabric of fear and cultivate courage in the hearts of his fellow Israelites, could it also reveal vulnerabilities within themselves? Joshua pondered the depths of his soul, recognizing that each song raised could be a mirror reflecting not only the faith in God but also the frailties of human spirit. "Let us not falter," he urged his people, raising his voice above the swelling pandemonium. "For our strength does not stem from the might of arms, but from the faith that is greater than any sword. For we are not just gathered here for a battle, but to testify to the world of the grace that delivered us." The sound of the trumpets intermingled with the swell of his call, igniting a fervor among the people. They sang louder, their trust in God reshaping the very atmosphere around them. Yet, as they did, a new series of questions began to take shape in Joshua's mind. What does it mean to engage in worship when everything seems lost? How deeply can faith unsettle the foundations of our adversities? And even more poignantly, as the chaos continued to rain down around them, would the power of their praise redefine their identity not as victors over enemies, but as children of a living God, forever transformed by the hope that remains steadfast regardless of the battle at hand? As the cries of the enemy mingled with the melody of faith, a strange stillness descended over the valley, as if time itself had paused to take heed of the unfolding drama. Joshua, his heart pounding with renewed vigor, remained fixed on the unfolding scene. The priests continued to sound their trumpets, each blast signaling not just a battle cry but a plea for divine intercession. In the air, there lingered an electricity of anticipation, heavy with unspoken promises. The men around him, enraptured by the songs, faced the cacophony of chaos with an unwavering resolve. Yet in the heart of their celebration, a question emerged in Joshua's mind: was worship enough to secure their victory, or must they also stand ready to engage in the fight physically, should the need arise? "Stand firm," he called out, elevated by the vibrant sound of faith reverberating through him. "This is not a battle of swords, but a profound testament to the power of the one who accompanies us. Let us not collapse under the weight of despair, but rather uplift our voices in unity." Yet the swirling confusion among the enemy soldiers intensified. Joshua could see doubt creeping into their ranks as brother turned against brother, suspicion seeping into their hardened hearts. They were being stripped of their bravado with each note sung by his people. Among the chaos, another figure emerged, one draped in armor, adorned with insignia that symbolized their might. He shouted over the tumult, rallying his men still ensnared by fear. "Regain your courage. Remember why you fight." His voice, though commanding, wavered. "Do not let the sound of their feeble songs debilitate your resolve. We are strong. We are the storm that sweeps across this land." Joshua avowed to see how every cry of reassurance had the opposite effect on those challenged by insecurity. The enemy, faced with an unyielding wall of faith, crumbled under the pressure of what their hearts knew to be true. The more the Israelites sang, the more it became apparent that these men, strong in stature yet weak in spirit, were losing the very essence of their strength. In that pivotal moment, the wisdom of ages past ignited within Joshua vision of what it truly meant to wield power in the realm of the Spirit. He remembered how his predecessors faced giants not just with weapons, but with the stubborn trust that God would act on their behalf. He could almost hear the voice of Moses whispering encouragement, reminding him that sometimes, the greatest battles are fought in the unseen realms. But even as clarity descended upon him, Joshua wrestled with inner doubts. Could they truly rely solely on worship to tip the scales of battle? Was it not a betrayal of their forefathers who had meticulously trained for warfare and prepared for conflict? He considered the implications of such reliance on divine aid, wondering if their commitment to faith would lead them to an ultimate revelation of their own inadequacies. As the enemy's emotional fortitude faltered, Joshua saw one soldier turn on another, the very fabric of their unity being unwound by the chaos. "What of our faith?" Joshua pondered, grappling with the conviction that not only was God revealing the weaknesses in their enemies, but also inviting him and his people to confront the weaknesses within themselves. The power to change lies within faith, and it was possible that they too must confront their inner giants as the battle raged on. In this profound moment of reflection, the sounds of worship rose to a crescendo, blending seamlessly with the panicked cries of the enemy. Joshua closed his eyes and, amidst the chaos, reached out for divine understanding, yearning for clarity to guide the hearts of his people. Would this day be marked not by the triumph of arms but by a defiant reawakening of faith? Could the essence of their worship carve a new path for a nation, making them eternally aware of their need for God's grace in both the victories and the struggles of life? What greater lessons lay ahead in the unfolding narrative, waiting to be discovered through trust in the one who stood unwaveringly beside them? As Joshua stood before the tumultuous scene unfolding in the valley, he felt an overwhelming sense of divine purpose wrap around him like a cloak. He had witnessed miracles, faced countless trials, and yet every moment had led to an unprecedented opportunity to deepen not only the faith of his people but his own understanding of God's will. Although the chaos among the enemy was palpable, Joshua felt the tide of fear receding within his own heart. "Raise your voices, my brothers and sisters. Proclaim the steadfast love of the Lord." Joshua called out, his voice rising above the din of confusion, an unwavering rallying cry empowering those around him. United they sang, their songs weaving through the air as they poured their hearts into harmonies filled with trust and hope. Within the ranks of the enemy, uncertainty morphed into fear. Swords fell from trembling hands as the clang of metal mixed with their collective cries of confusion. The unwavering faith of Israel began to shine a light that shattered the darkness of doubt that clung to the soldiers of the opposing camp. What once was a unified front began to fracture, their loyalty crumbling under the invisible weight of a truth they had long ignored, the stark realization that they entangled their strength not just in arms but in fear. As the cacophony grew louder, Joshua found himself lost in contemplation. In that moment, he caught a glimpse of a profound reality, that God's intervention is often twofold, stirring within the application of faith and also revealing the frailty of those opposing. Our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the very spirit of fear, he whispered, urging every ounce of faith to pour forth through the songs that echoed in the valley. From behind the tumult, a hush began to settle. It started as a whispered confession among the enemy ranks. What have we become? The flicker of doubt grew, igniting insecurity as brother turned against brother, misunderstandings rampant in the chaos of their wavering faith. The formidable army that had once charged with the intent of conquest was now retreating into their own quagmire of despair, questioning the very foundation of their might. Now is the time, my people. Joshua defied their fears aloud. Let us march forth and declare not only what God has done but who He is. For the praise of our hearts shall dismantle the strongholds built upon pride and fear. With a renewed sense of purpose, the Israelites pressed forward, taking their battle not to swords or shields, but through the continuous refrain of worship filling the air. In those poignant moments, an ethereal silence wrapped around Joshua, and he caught a glimpse of the shadow of doubt haunting his own heart, whispering insidiously. Would they truly believe? Would the enemy see and understand the gesture of faith over militaristic might? He found himself confronted with an unsettling truth: the very fragility of faith anew. Yet within our vulnerability lies the essence of our strength, Joshua declared resolutely, each note sung fortifying the foundation of their unity. We do not battle to conquer, we tread forward to testify to the love that binds us and propels us toward freedom. And then it happened. As they descended upon the crumbling enemy ranks, with joyful shouts echoing through the valley, it became evident this was more than a mirage of victory, it was a holistic resurrection of faith and identity. They were not merely worshippers, nor were they solely warriors, they were a people changed, the very essence of their being transformed by the promises fulfilled through worship. As the last notes of their melody faded, a heartbeat pulsed throughout the land, a wave of recognition washing over the soldiers' hearts, penetrating the armor of their resolve. Across the battlefield, eyes in both camps locked in an unspoken understanding. Joshua witnessed men from opposing sides drop their weapons, trembling hands raised to the heavens. In that breathtaking moment, it was as if time stood still, shattering the divide. The revelation echoed within Joshua's spirit: the true power of faith lies in its capacity to transcend borders, in its ability to unravel fear and build bridges where none dared to exist. Worship had become the greatest weapon, the weapon that neither rust nor dust could degrade, for it carved paths to reconciliation not merely among men, but within the very souls of those enshrined in furor and division. Caleb, standing resolutely beside Joshua, turned to whisper, "What do you see, my friend?" Joshua lowered his gaze to the valley below, where faith had conquered fear and unveiled hearts that had long been chained by doubt. "I see not only the defeat of an army but the awakening of souls to the grace of God." As the dust settled over the battlefield, a profound silence enveloped the land, mingling with whispers of hope. Both armies slowly gathered, not as enemies but as witnesses, transformed confirmation that in every sweet and tender note of praise, there lies the potential for redemption, the beauty of grace poured forth upon the earth. As Joshua stood amidst his people, he recognized that while they faced trials anew, they also carried an undying promise. The monumental structure they had begun to build stood not just as a testament of victory but as a symbol of faith binding future generations in the truth that God walks with them, fighting unseen battles, and calling them to trust Him through all. Shadows of fear that once clawed at their hearts began to dissipate, washed away by the light of revelation shining brightly above. Joshua's voice rose again, a resolute crescendo: "We will walk forward," he declared, emboldened by the slightest glimmer of faith. "For our God remains with us, His strength is our strength, and in Him, we are forever entwined." The triumph over despair awakened something deeper within each individual present. They began to connect not through titles of tribes or earthly allegiances, but through one unrelenting and undeniable truth, that the battles we face are not mere contests of flesh. We are all part of a grand story, an enduring journey toward the heart of God, and thus, as they continued on their shared pilgrimage, Joshua found that the final revelation did not end with the defeat of their enemies, but in the understanding that often the greatest victories arise from profound acts of faith amidst uncertainty, transformations that ripple through generations, inviting those lost in the shadows to step into the radiant life of light, for he learned that in the end, what unites humanity is not fear or conflict, but love, and love was the ultimate weapon, stronger than any sword or shield, capable of paving the way to redemption even in the darkest of nights. The journey ahead beckons, but with faith, resilient hearts can rise, knowing that they are never alone.